Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're taking a look at the Ultra League for the first time in the Might and Mastery season. A lot of Pokemon that were strong last season are still strong this season, but there's some up-and-comers that are looking to make their names as meta contenders. And today, I'm taking a look at one of them, and that is XL Cradily. Cradily maxed out all the way to level 50, proves to be a massive threat this season, offering a lot of bulk and constant debuffs with Rock Tomb. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at level 50 Cradily in the Open Ultra League. Picking up a terrible lead in the first match, wheezing into Golurk. I'm going to save switch into Talonflame, and my opponent is going to respond with a Licky Licky. Licky Licky, I can tank whatever they throw one and build up to the back-to-back, but I accidentally click on the move. That is not great, as that means that I now have to rely on damage registration error to get the second move. I actually end up getting it, which I so very rarely get, but if I play properly there and I just throw one and reach the back-to-back, then I wouldn't have that issue. Now I can send in the Wheezing. Wheezing, I'm going to be tanking whatever they throw here and looking to farm down. They actually go for an Earthquake, so now I'm going to switch into Cradily, and my opponent pivots back. They send in Shadow Golurk, and if they're bringing a Golurk into a Grass type, something is very seriously wrong. Golurk committing a shield as well. They're now going to go for a Shadow Punch bait, and I'm more than happy to double shield to Cradily and look to overfarm quite significantly. So my opponent is going to go for another Shadow Punch bait. I'm going to farm up just shy of 100 energy, and Grass Knot will make quick work of the Golurk. My opponent still does have a 1 HP Licky Licky and a third Pokemon that they'll be bringing in shortly, and it is Mandibuzz. And this is part of what makes Cradily so devastating in the Ultra League. It is such a great core breaker into so many teams due to this rock grass coverage. Here, my opponent tries to catch when I go for the Rock Tomb, but I was expecting it. So I'm just able to Bullet Seed down the double nuke Licky Licky, and this poor Mandibuzz got to reset its debuff just to have that debuff immediately reapplied. We get to another Rock Tomb, and Cradily just completely shut down Mandibuzz Golurk core to take the Game 1 win. Game number 2, we've got Wheezing versus Wheezing. Now for this team, the one thing that I'm not particularly convinced on is the Talonflame safe swap. I had great results with the team. I think the Wheezing plus Cradily core is an incredibly powerful one, but I think that there will probably be slightly better options than a Talonflame safe swap here. I'm able to get a nice catch of the Sludge onto the Talonflame, and now my opponent is going to respond with a Gastrodon. Bit of a weird switch in here. Either they're very core broken or they have Water Pulse. Even if they have Water Pulse, I don't care, because if they do, then they're energy dry and I can send in Cradily. And Cradily is going to completely destroy Gastrodon. That's another thing I love about Cradily. It destroys Gastrodon, it destroys Steelix. So many of the top meta threats from last season, Cradily is going to do great against. In the back, my opponent has their own Cradily. I end up banking energy, and I do a quick combo play into the Wheezing. I can never afford, when playing against a Cradily, to not have at least 2 Pokemon alive, because I need to make sure that I can undo a debuff. So that's why I end up shielding, and now my opponent is going to bring back in their own Wheezing. So it appears the Wheezing Cradily core, not as much of a secret, as my opponent has figured out that it's pretty strong as well. I'm going to fire off the Sludge. Sludge is going to be shielded. I switch into my Cradily, and my opponent is going to fire off their energy. This is non-debuff, so I'm more than happy to shield, and when my opponent switches into Shadow Cradily, I can immediately apply a debuff with Rock Tomb. And you can begin to see just the power of this Pokemon constantly being able to debuff your opponent again and again and again. Grass Knot is going to land. That's some pretty significant damage, but not as much as it would be before the Rock Tomb debuff. And now I have a guaranteed win condition, and that's throw 4 and switch. If I don't get the catch, I can Fairy Wind down, and if I do get the catch, then I just win because I can farm down Cradily. They're going to switch into the Wheezing. Their only hope is to get to a move, but Cradily is just able to outpace. KO with the Rock Tomb. In comes their Cradily. We Bullet Seed down, and this Pokemon is just absolute filth. Oh my goodness. Picking up a pretty awkward lead, leading Galarian Wheezing into Jellicent. This is a matchup where Brutal Swing would be very nice. I opted against Brutal Swing, even though I did like it for the Great League, just because I felt like in the Ultra League, everything's so bulky, so it would be really nice to have a move that can actually inflict damage. But Jellicent is now a pretty significant core breaker here. Jellicent, going to fire off another charge stack. I'm very okay to just fully sacrifice the Weezing. Surf barely does KO, and now it's time. XL Cradily hits the field. Cradily looks like a CMP tie against the Jellicent that it's able to win. Grass Knot knocks out the Jellicent, and my opponent is now going to send in a regular Drapion. Believe it or not, XL Cradily beats Shadow Drapion in the 1s and the 2s. It's the most disgusting thing I have ever witnessed. This, of course, is a regular Drapion, so they will be able to tank the Rock Tombs better than the Shadow, whereas with the Shadow, the Rock Tomb is basically 2-shot. Poor timing there from my opponent. They give me an entire free Bullet Seed. Crunch is going to land. They're heavily debuffed, and that forces them to switch out. And that's the power, again, of this XL Cradily. I had so much fun getting to play it today. But even if you have something that core breaks you, just debuff them a bunch, switch, and they're forced to switch out because they don't want to stay in and throw energy that's at -2. So now we have a fight between Weezing and Talonflame. Talonflame going to start using shields, as I'm going to need this Talonflame's health to try and win the game. And now I can fire off another fly. That's going to be shielded by my opponent, and they are going to be firing off another move. I realize that my win con is saving this move, switching into Cradily, and sniping with the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb will be able to pick up the knockout, and now they get to bring back in the Drapion. Now all might seem lost here, because I'm not going to be able to KO with the Rock Tomb. But guess what? With the debuff and the fact that they're non-shadow, that means that an Aqua Tail does not knock out Talonflame from this health range. They go for the crunch, I get to fire off the fly, and I double check after the fact, and Aqua Tail would not KO here. So the synergy that Cradily has to debuff things and suddenly make your other Pokemon feel so much bulkier than they are is completely ridiculous. We move to the next match, leading Weezing into an opposing Cradily, and I think this is going to be a very common sight. Weezing immediately met with a Rock Tomb, and I'm going to go for the harder hitting Play Rough. Sludge is better damage per energy, but I want to get as much damage as I possibly can because I'm going to get a Play Rough plus a Sludge before they can apply their second debuff. So I want to get as much damage as possible before that second debuff comes through. Once a second debuff is applied, I don't think I quite have enough firepower for a Play Rough to KO. So what I can do is I can just save this energy for later and make a switch and a catch onto my own Cradily. My Cradily is now going to be debuffed, but I get to burn quite a bit of my switch clock by making the catch, and now they're going to send in Tentacruel. These Rock Tubes are not going to be doing much at -1, but I just get to continually apply more and more debuffs to my opponent. If they want a knockout, they have to Blizzard. A Scald is just not going to cut it at -1. They go for a Scald, and look at these poison jabs. They're doing nothing. Oh my goodness. I really liked Cradily in the Grey League. This thing is a monster in the Ultra League. They are forced to throw energy because I could make another move. They're just unable to farm down Cradily. Cradily just debuffs and debuffs and sometimes feels like a bit of just an unkillable monster in the Ultra League. I'm shielding up the Scald with Talonflame. I'll throw 2 here. This will be on alignment, but I want as much residual energy as possible in case they decide to no shield. So Fly is going to be picking up the KO. In comes Mandibuzz, and I'm happy that I have that extra Incinerate on the Talonflame because I can already make it to a Fly. Mandibuzz farming up, very nice timing, throwing 3 and the move 9 turns into my 10 turns. Dark Pulse is going to land, and now quick switch into the Weezing and a Sludge Bait. The Sludge Bait is going to be shielded. I get to another Sludge. They'll know this isn't enough for a Play Rough, but the goal is basically just to put it in a range where I can knock it out with a Fly. Nice overfarm there from the opponent, maximizing as much energy as they can possibly get. Back in comes the Talonflame, and Talonflame is very close to the back-to-back moves. Talonflame, Fly is going to be shielded, Mandibuzz firing off energy, and I will commit the final shield. I believe they should still be 2 off the move, and that means that I can win this game because I need enough residual energy to be within 2 Incinerates of the Fly because the Cradily was energy dry. So as the match timer hits 0, Brave Bird KOs their Cradily, and we move to 4-0 in the set. Looking for the 5-0 set, Galarian Weezing into Unova Stunfisk, and this is where it's all going to go wrong because we are so ABA weak to Unova Stunfisk. I decided to stay in because I'm incredibly weak here. My hope is that If I can basically sacrifice the Weezing, bring in Cradily, farm them down, then Talonflame can sweep. But the fact that I'm staying in should clue them into the fact that their Stunfisk is going to have value in the endgame. So unfortunately, I can't get to another play rough. I bring in Cradily, they pivot out, and this game is already looking like a loss. That is very unfortunate. I'm going to get to fire off a Rock Tomb, debuffing the Giratina. Cradily also beats Giratina in the 1s and the 2s, by the way. Incredibly terrifying stuff for a grass fast move Pokemon to just beat Giratina. Now, I'm going to try and save the Cradily for later because obviously I'm going to need it for the Stunfisk. And with Talonflame, I'm going to try and incinerate it into Brave Bird range. It's not in Brave Bird range just yet. After this next Incinerate, it will be. So I'll be able to pick up the knockout here. But clock's up. In comes the Stunfisk. And by being able to preserve that Giratina, unfortunately, that's probably going to seal my fate because it's highly likely that they're going to have a second answer to Grass in the back. So, they actually don't. They have a Grumpig as their final Pokemon, but this is not an amazing spot to be as the Cradily because, unfortunately, I've taken enough damage where even if I debuff Dynamic Punch is still going to be enough to KO. I'm farming up more energy, firing off yet another Rock Tomb, but at this point, yeah, there's just no way to win this game. My opponent, if they want to as well, can even switch out into the Giratina, and they do just that. So all the hard work getting those debuffs is for naught. Well, I'll take a 4-1 set, but I'm not going to waste my opponent's time, so I will resign the match. Dream lead, leading into Pangoro. Opponent safe switches into Skeleturge, and I make a miss swap. What I should have done was brought in Cradily, because Cradily, of course, is able to spam out super effective Rock Tombs, debuffing my opponent as they buff themselves with Torch Song, and even if I lose switch, it does not matter, because Pangoro can't do anything against Talonflame or against Weezing. But by switching in Talonflame, I've now given my opponent a potential out to try and boost up and potentially try and farm down this Talonflame. I'm going to go for a second fly bait. My opponent ends up calling this one, but instead of trying to force a simul KO, they aggressively pivot into the Pangoro, and I get to answer with the hard counter that is Galarian Weezing. Galarian Weezing farming up quite a bit, and I will fire off the Sludge just so I can preserve enough HP on the Weezing. I know that Weezing is going to tank any one move from the Skeleturge. Skeleturge hits the field, and I believe I did click the Sludge, so that will be a CMP tie. It is going to be a Torch Song from that Skeleturge. I get to return to fire with the Sludge. Sludge is going to be shielded, and in the back, my opponent has Jellicent. And Jellicent, another Pokemon that did get a buff this season. XL Jellicent should look to be quite strong in this meta, but unfortunately, it's not doing much against Cradily. I know that I need 2 moves to KO, so I'm just going to debuff them with a Rock Tomb, slowing the roll of the Jellicent, and now I don't even have to shield. Cradily in a very comfortable position. I get to fire off this Grass Knot. Grass Knot will very comfortably pick up the knockout onto the Jellicent, and then all that's left is going to be this Skeleturge. Skeleturge, I mean, they can knock me out, but I can KO them with 1 Incinerate, but the funny thing is I actually get 1 turn Bring In, so my Incinerate doesn't register. I still win, but I specifically did that to see if I did get 1 turn, and I did. So Niantic, please fix the game. Here, great lead into Clefable. My opponent safe switches into Feraligatr, and I'm in a great spot. Weezing beats Feraligatr, but I'm going to make a game-losing misplay right off the bat. And that is, I allow my opponent to bait out Cradily. There's no reason for me to send in Cradily here. Weezing is going to do amazingly against the Feraligatr, so I can just stay in and play that out. But instead, I end up sending in Cradily, and I decide to give up switch. My thought process was Talonflame's energy goes very far in this meta, and on top of that, their Clefable can't really do anything against either the Weezing or the Talonflame, so if I have switch or not, it's not going to matter too much. But it's not going to be the lack of switch advantage that actually loses me the game here, but rather the fact that I did not save Cradily. I can just stay in with the Weezing. Weezing does great into Feraligatr. You're consistently able to outpace and really apply so much pressure with Sludge. But now I have Talonflame into Clefable. Clefable spamming out Swifts, and I am going to be firing off this Fly. Fly into Clefable. Clefable is going to commit the shield, and in the back is Steelix, and I need my Grass type to resist Thunderfang. But unfortunately, I threw away my Grass type for literally no reason, and now I'm going to lose the game as a result. So if you do see a team structure like this, which I think will be a pretty common structure, which is fairy type, then you have the Feraligatr, which looks to bait out a potential grass like Cradily or Virizion, and then Steelix in the back. You can just stay in and play it out with the Weezing, because Cradily is going to be the key to victory against the Steelix in the back. Whereas unfortunately for me, my opponent, their switch timer's up, so they can just switch into the Clefable and snipe. Even if I click Sludge there, I mean, the Steelix can just re-hit the field, and Steelix will be able to fire off the Psychic Fangs and knock me out. So either way, the moment that I lost that Cradily and threw it away for no reason, that game was doomed to a loss. Hopping into the final match, and our nemesis has returned, Unova Stunfisk. I'm going to try for a catch onto Cradily. The catch attempt is unsuccessful, and out comes Golisopod. Golisopod, of course, now has Aqua Jet, a terrific charge attack, but in this matchup, they're probably going to be firing off X-Scissors. X-Scissor will hit for super effective damage, but it looks like my opponent is actually on Aerial Ace. Typically, if they had X-Scissor, they'd throw it here because it's super effective, but it looks like they do not have X-Scissor, so that's a bit of good luck for me. Now, I am going to be returning fire with a second Rock Tomb, and this will allow me to win Switch, but Switch doesn't do anything for me if my opponent sends in their third. So what I'm going to do is bank a move, pivot into Weezing, bluff an Overheat that I do not have to force them to switch out and send in the Stunfisk. Because now Stunfisk is baited out, I can get some damage on it, I have a move stored on Cradily, and this game looks like it might actually be winnable. The issue is the Cradily is very, very low. Granted, it's unlikely you're going to see many Unova Stunfisk, but if you do see them, it is going to be a very difficult fight. Stunfisk going to shield up a Rock Tomb. I know that with the debuff, I can survive a Mud Bomb here. Not super well, but I can survive, so I'm going to save it, and I'll bring in the Talonflame. The hope is that Talonflame is going to be able to get a full Incinerate farm down before my opponent is able to get to multiple moves, but unfortunately, they are actually able to get there. That's tough, because now I am shieldless. My opponent is going to switch into Corviknight, and Corviknight will immediately be met with Fly. I can't debuff my defense just yet until they fire off their energy. Corviknight is going to be firing off a charge attack here. Corviknight goes for the payback. That does some significant damage, but is not enough to knock out. I'm going for the Brave Bird because I need damage onto the Corviknight. Opponent is going to respect it with a shield. Farming up here, the switch to Cradily. And somehow, despite having a 5-turn against the 1-turn, we're able to get a catch. Back in comes the Talonflame. We get the farm down, and we get our revenge against Unova Stunfisk. That game, oh my goodness, never should have been a win, but I'm happy to escape with a victory. All in all, I think that XL Cradily, the extra bulk in the Ultra League, plus the guaranteed Rock Tomb debuffs, this thing is an absolute terror. I saw Cradily plus Weezing Core in quite a few battles today, and I'm expecting, if people have the XL candies for it, to see it quite a bit, because Cradily is very, very powerful. Another Rock Tomb user that I'd love to try is actually XL Fortress. Unfortunately, I just don't have the XL candies for it. They did announce a bug event for the end of the month, but the bug event doesn't have Pineco spawns, which is really unfortunate. So it looks like unless there is a Pineco event at some point, I will not be able to get the XLs for Fortress. But if Cradily is this strong, I imagine that Fortress in the Ultra League, where it has a lot more bulk, should have tremendous play as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.